Hello, everyone. Good evening on another ScrantonTalks episode. My name is Luz Cabrales, and I am the co-founder of the Independent Creative Hub, as well as Scranton Films.
Hi, everyone. My name is Desiree, and I'm also the co-founder of the Independent Film Creative Hub, and I also run NEPA Film Society, which is a local filmmaking community here in Northeast Pennsylvania, and I also organize the Mystery Box Film Challenge.
And we're very, very excited to be bringing you ScrantonTalks through the Independent Creative Hub Network. If you haven't already, please sign up. It's ourcreativehub.com, and it's free to join. The good thing about that is that there's forums where you could talk to other filmmakers. You could post casting notices if you're making a film, if you want to collaborate on a project. This network is for you, and without you, we can't grow. So right, Desiree, like, we need people to sign up.
That's true. We need people to get involved.
Exactly, and start growing our community of filmmakers around the area. And speaking of filmmakers, Desiree, do you want to introduce our filmmaker for the day?
Yeah, so tonight's Scranton Talks, we have Zack Wilcox here joining us this evening. We're so glad to have Zack here. Zack Wilcox is an upstate New York born and raised filmmaker who brings the sensibilities of small town life into his filmmaking. After an extensive career as a crew member on countless indie features, commercials, television, and music videos, he has honed skills in all technical aspects of streamlined indie filmmaking. And so we're so glad to have him tonight.
Yes, we are very excited. And someone is literally messaging me on Facebook. So if you hear that sound, that's probably it. But before we do get into the interview today, we're going to show some of the work that Zack has been part of. And then we can talk a little bit about his journey and just pretty laid back conversation about what, how he got started in the film industry. Okay, so here we go. Give me 1 second.
Just one drop. Oh! Gorilla Super Glue Micro Precise. Of course!
Precise application, controlled dispensing with Gorilla Strength for the toughest jobs on planet Earth.
We know there are a lot of bags out there, so what's special about this one? Well, it can do that, which is super convenient when riding a bike or a skateboard, or even roller skating. Wow. It can be your carry-on bag, or your beach bag, or your photography bag, or your bag for that. Whatever you're into. Fighting ninjas? Sure, if you can fight ninjas. Literally anything you can do with a backpack or a messenger bag, you can do with this bag because it's the Bag Pack. Only from Hillside. Carry how you want.
Want a relaxing pedicure?
Relaxing pedicure? My feet get so dry and cracked, I need serious relief. That's why I use O'Keeffe's for healthy feet. Guaranteed relief for extremely dry, cracked feet. Thanks to O'Keeffe's, I got my feet back.
Everything in the woods has a choice to make. And most of the time, it's the path of least resistance. The scents they smell, the prints they see, they can block that path. Everything has an impact. Everyone makes their own choices. I made mine as much as you made yours. And they all sit in judgment of the way they decide to live, but it doesn't matter what the verdict is. They're always going to have to live with the consequences.
Wow,
That's pretty awesome.
Yes. Well, Zack, I'm gonna have Desiree start the conversation. We're really excited that you're here with us, and let's just dive in.
All right.
Yeah, that reel was so great, and I mean, even the trailer for Hunting Lands, which we'll get to in a minute, that looked amazing. We've had some time to watch it. So the first question we have here is let's talk about how did you get started into filmmaking? What was your starting point and how did you get into filmmaking?
It's kind of a weird story, actually. I started out, I went to school for audio first, so for recording arts. And well, I went to regular college, then I went to a school for recording arts. And then out of that, I interned at some studios that all kind of went out of business in different amazing fashions because like home recording became the thing right after I got done with it. So
Yeah.
I had a couple of friends and who eventually became my roommates that worked in film, and they kind of dragged me into it. I literally always kind of felt when I was younger that it wasn't a thing that you could do. You know, it didn't seem like music. We had recording studios near me, you know, where I grew up. I had bands that, you know, we had been to studios, so it looked like a job that you could do.
Yeah.
But film seemed kind of, I loved movies. I loved to shoot things. I had fun with VHS camera and stuff like that, but just didn't seem attainable. So then I started doing sound for films first.
Okay.
And really kind of fell in love with lighting and everything that it takes to make a film. And after you get beat down by it enough, I guess you get like Stockholm syndrome into deciding that you're going to do it for the rest of your life.
Well, that's good because that's the thing about being creative is that sometimes we feel that like how do I even get started? How do I do this? And is this even something that can support me? When we all think about what we want to do when we grow up, right? And sometimes some people want to go for the family straight up or just for the career. And when you're a creative, it's very hard because if you want both, then how do you support yourself as an artist, right? And you basically touched that in a very personal way, that how do I do this? A lot of people and a lot of filmmakers are they think that it's only you're either a director, you're a producer, or a big star, right?
Yeah.
But we forget about the basically all the crew that makes this film.
There are a lot of jobs on a film that a lot of people don't realize.
Right. So maybe talk to us about that. You say you got into audio, you got into lighting. Let's start there, and then we'll move on to because I know you produce and directed some films. So let's start where you really got started.
Well, I mean, production assistant's usually where most people get started, which is a job I have never done, sadly. I kind of like specialized and owned gear and understood audio enough to work my way in as a sound mixer and like a boom op. And then coming up from there, making friends with people into lighting, came out, did a like a couple of lighting jobs, things like that, and really kind of put my mind around what the dynamic was for lighting. And the reason why I enjoyed it was because that there's things that you see that are beautiful and you're like, I want to execute that. Then you have to figure out what those sources were, where they came from, how you kind of like actually feather contrast and really kind of stack an image and make something that looks kind of like what you were thinking when you started. So it's a skill that you can build. And then once I realized that, I realized that it was the sort of thing where you can actually kind of, learn the shape and ratio. And
right.
Once you can make that work, then you can kind of transition through and get hired for that. But the thing is that I feel like locally here, most of the filmmakers that I've met end up being like 1-man or 3-man band type things, or, like it's, for you guys, I know you did. I saw your film from last year's Mystery Box, and like that was, you're out, you're walking around town. It's 2 people. You're getting it done.
Yeah,
so
completely ad-libbed, completely improvised.
But you see what I'm talking about, where it's like, okay, so you're not working with a 60-man crew trying to get out there, and like there's not a makeup artist coming up and splashing in the face. There's no production designer to do it. There's no, like you are everything. So.
Right.
Some of the things are going to slip through the cracks, and that ends up being the thing where when I try to tell people here that have only seen this version of it, that there's this gigantic version that they know of, but it seems superfluous to them because it's like, well, I can manage to make all this with this. And it's like, well, but once you start to specialize, you actually like, as the director, as the cinematographer, which for the 2 of you, if you had a bunch of people to do all of the other stuff, you would have so much space to concentrate all of your energy towards the specifics of it. And then, you know, that definitely helps out with the feature film. For a short film, having some fun, it's like, yeah, go out and get it done. But I
Right,
think,
and like you said, it's all about experience, getting that, and maybe specializing in something specific, or maybe not. Maybe you know everything. Now, for you, you consider yourself more of a technical, guy, or more of the creative, or a little bit of both?
I guess it's got to be a little bit of both. I mean, I understand the instruments that it takes to make the whole thing work. And with lighting, it's definitely like it's changed leaps and bounds since like my initial intro into the film world. HD was kind of the new thing. So we were shooting on HD cameras. When I first started doing sound, we were still rolling to DAT tape. And, all of the digital world was there, but it wasn't compact. It wasn't robust enough to be able to work off from it yet. So seeing that change, and then lighting, after I got into that, like we were on tungsten and HMI, and then a little bit of fluorescent tubes, and now it's like it's the kind of lion's share of it's now LED. And that was something to get used to, especially because LED was not nearly a competitor when it first started to grow. So then it became this thing of like you hardly want to get into it. And still, like, even the more higher powered LED lights don't have the throw that all of the HMIs had. And it's hard. It's kind of hard to get to that point. You literally lightning in a bottle for one, and then the other one is, a chip on a board. So, but there is kind of something magical to living through this time, I guess, where everything's changing so quickly. And I think that ends up being like the technical marvel for me, is what I can get done versus what I used to have to do to get things done. And like that equivalency. So it's technical, but it's the art form of like, you're trying to paint with light. With sound, you're trying to get it as clean as possible. It's like, that's definitely more technical. Sound mixer is not a creative job. That's a very clinical job. You're in there to get the best possible bass for someone else to do a creative job with it. Lighting, you're in there to get the best possible bass for the creativity to continue. But if you don't put it into the negative, it's not there.
Right.
So it's like,
and it's very important, and like you say, like you think technology has helped you with that. I know there's still all the fundamentals of lighting, and like a lot of films don't even need that much lighting. They do a lot of natural light, but you still have to have the eye for it, right? So how do you encounter that as you were learning how to do this? And because I'm sure you're still learning just how technology helped you with that, but also you had the eye for it, right? So maybe a little bit of that, how you felt when you were doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the learning part is definitely like, there's always room to screw it up, and that's where you're going to do your learning now, because there's not a whole lot of people that can come to you and be like, here's exactly what has to happen. I mean, there are a few rules that I try to follow and that I tell other people to follow, and those will get you started. They'll get you to the base of what you want to do. Everything after that is kind of that learning curve of like, you're going for something drastic and dramatic looking, and it's got to be like, you want your waveform to be peaks and valleys, and you want spread out as much of the color as possible. And then other versions of it are like the commercials that we showed at the beginning, where it's like it's not flat, but it's relatively on the higher side of, it's bright, it's white, it's clean.
Right.
Because no company, well, I mean, some of the companies definitely want to present it to you in a very dark manner, but when they're trying to sell you glue, they're just like, oh no, here's a really picture book looking version of a guy who's gluing a train conductor's head back on. Like it's so there's a different model for everything that you're going to work for, and there's definitely an art that goes into understanding how that's done, and the technology making leaps forward. Not quite as fast as I'd like it to. If we could get to the point where everything hovers, that would be so great. I'm tired of carrying stuff.
Same here. You can see those. Now, I'm gonna probably show those again for people that didn't get here earlier. But it's very interesting what you're saying about a lot of this lighting and even sound, and just how you present a project is to sometimes it's to sell someone something, right? Or to have someone have a specific emotion. So I think the way you touch that, certain lighting, certain lenses, certain ways of doing will create a specific emotion that people will feel. And I'll show that at the end, but just the bright colors, like you want to make maybe someone feel happy. How do you learn about that as well, right? So now you know the technical aspect of it, and just how when you get a client and they tell you this is what I want, right? What's your process of I guess what I'm trying to say, what's your creative process, right? Let's say I come to you with a project.
I mean, well, it depends on what the project is. If it's commercial, then most likely you already have brand colors, you already have a palette that you're going to work with. So it's basically looking into how do I get that palette and what version of my lighting will make that the most vibrant. So I'm either trying to, like, unless you're, like a backpacker company that sells wool socks, and then I have to make everything as earth tone as possible and relatively desaturated. And then, but it's like each thing will come with its own color palette, its own design. And so you work from there. As far as like a film structure, like if you were to try to make a short or a feature film or music video, which I have mentioned many times, I'm not a huge fan of, not to you guys, but to everyone who's ever asked me. So like the basic idea behind the feature film would be that, like you give me examples, we want to execute your vision first. So the director comes first. So if I'm a cinematographer for you, I would want to execute your vision, or you hired me because you've seen something I've already done that does exactly what you want. And I'll try to talk you out of copying it directly, and we'll figure out a way to, translate your voice into that, steal a little bit of the look, because, and stealing is obviously flattering to the filmmaker that you stole it from, unless you do better than they did, I think is the only qualifier for that one.
Right. There's no original idea. It's just how you actually present it, how you actually get the job done. But so that brings us into your commercial work, and then Desiree will touch a little bit of your independent film, because I know you have a wide array of experience. So let's talk about the I guess we showed 3 of them, but you have an extensive collection of work that you've done commercially, and you've done the camera work, correct?
Yeah, I've actually, oddly enough, I've never directed a commercial.
Okay.
Not yet.
I've shot many as director of photography. I've done quite a few as a sound mixer. Actually, oddly enough, during the writer's strike in LA, I want to say middle of 2009, maybe somewhere in there. I was art director on a Oil of Olay commercial. I had to go around and buy like 3,000 fake plastic oranges from every single like hobby store near us, and then make a bunch of orange trees for a set, because currently oranges weren't in season, so we couldn't get that. So it's like but yeah, I don't even remember how I got that job. I think it was like a friend of a friend who was like, here's an art job, take it. And then by the time I got there, I was like, oh, so I'm actually like, I'm in charge of this, and there's no production designer, and it turns into its own thing. But so I've done a little bit of everything in the commercial world. And
what was the main difference? So that's a good point. I mean, now what was the main difference between those 2 tasks that you had? One where you had to take care of everything in the sense of the looks of it, versus the technical part of it. Did you like it, basically?
I guess the production designer part I kind of looked at as like, this isn't something that I would want to do forever, because oddly enough, it is a harder job.
Okay.
Because there's so much less of a structure for it. So it's not as structured as like when you're working as a director of photography, it's very structured. The equipment is very structured. You know what you're going to get for what you're trying to do. And there's a certain rental list. So it's like, is it dolly? Is it Steadicam? Is it going to be, gimbal came around, and now that ends up in the mix as well. Is it a car mount? There's a bunch of different ways to execute it, but it all has specified equipment, versus production designer where they're like, we want orange trees, and I'm like, that it's winter, and even in Los Angeles, winter still means no orange trees. So, you know, then it turns into, okay, we'll make orange trees with monofilament and a bunch of fake plastic oranges, and then oddly enough, the leaves aren't on the orange trees. So then it was like trying to find the right breed of plastic tree that looked like orange leaves, and then ripping all of those off and gluing them to like a currently dormant, you know, like lemon tree.
And what was the outcome of that project at the end?
I mean, the lady looked really nice in the bathtub full of milk, pulling oranges off from an orange tree that's somehow growing in her bathtub. I don't know.
So you succeeded.
Yeah, they're always weird. I think that one ran for a solid like 2 years after that too. I kept seeing it like at the airport. I would see it on screen and be like, oh, they're really getting their money's worth, because they did it as fully non-union contract, so they didn't have to pay anyone, like director, the person who wrote the commercial, they didn't have to pay them any residuals, and the actors were all non-union as well. So for them, it was like, here's a great buy, because normally they have to pay royalties to everyone who created the thing. And then this is a run where they don't. So it ran longer than most commercials that I've worked on.
So how do you feel when you saw that? I mean, I know that in the beginning we all get excited about our work being seen places, and then as you do more and do more, it just becomes, you know, like normal. But what is the main difference between then and now? Like, I mean, do you still get excited about seeing some of your work? And we're gonna touch on that a little bit because Zack just worked on a Hallmark movie. So we have, you know, we have some questions for you. But if you can answer that question, if it's possible.
I can give a little bit of a kind of an odd story. When we were shooting Hunting Lands, we were in northern Michigan, and the director one of the directors, there's two directors for the Gorilla Glue commercials, and I'd worked with their company a bunch before that, but I ran into a point where one of the directors from that film sent in a casting tape for the lead in Hunting Lands, and we watched it and we were like, okay, well, this is going to be weird, but like he's getting the role. So the lead in the film is actually the director from all that I've worked with forever, and I actually was the gaffer on his first feature film. So then he's the lead in my first feature film, and we're sitting at the hotel while shooting it, and the commercials that we had shot 3 months before that are playing on the TV in the hotel, like every time as we're sitting there, like, you know, drinking and playing poker and trying to unwind after a week of wandering the woods in the cold. So it was just like, it was kind of surreal, where that's the moment where you're like, okay, I mean, we've sort of made it, I guess. Like we're, at least people are seeing our stuff. They're seeing that, and then you're working on this film and you're like, man, I hope people get to see this too. And I feel like a large enough amount did, I guess, to make me sort of happy. So. And
Hunting Lands, I know Desiree had a few questions about that, because that's your feature film, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it's your directorial debut, is from what we heard for Hunting Lands. But also, if you wanted to get into, like, you're getting away from the commercial side of your work, if you want to talk about your independent film work, including Hunting Lands, and maybe get into that you are in the process of getting it distributed on Amazon and how that works as well.
I mean, I believe it was on Amazon for about 2 years. It's down off from Amazon right now because of a lawsuit, and that was to get our film back turned into, like, this is a completely separate nightmare. I feel like this is not entirely the question that you want answered, but I'm doing it.
It's important to know.
Whatever you like.
But it's up to you how you want to.
So we did the festival circuit.
While you do that, I'm gonna charge my phone before it dies on us. Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
So we did the festival circuit, and basically everybody told us when we were coming out with the film that it was going to be like, you were going to look at that kind of ratio of like, you'll probably get into 2 or 3 festivals. And it got into upwards of 20 some odd festivals. Wow. And it did surprisingly well. And then you're at festivals, so you've got distributors there that are looking to buy the film, and unfortunately the smoothest talking of the distributors happened to be kind of the worst thing to happen to the film because they basically took it and put it on, put it on Amazon, iTunes, DirecTV Now.
Don't mind me. There it is.
Just put it on everywhere they could sell it to. Basically,
Wow.
they got it out there, and they never paid the EP a dime. Like the executive producer didn't get any cash out of the deal, and then it just turned into this giant nightmare. So I mean, I guess like the excitement level goes to a thing, and then it turns into whatever it turns into. So now, my assumption, I need to talk to him about it, but that we have the rights back for the film, but now it's a thing of like, how do you get another distribution company to take it after someone else already did the main release and made all of the money that it was going to make off from its first release. So I guess it's holding pattern, and you wait and see. Or I do something next and it makes it worth money again because people might look for it. So
is this the first time you've experienced this?
I mean, I've witnessed it plenty of times, and definitely on other films that I've been crew on where I saw people get ripped off. And it is kind of the like cliche of the film business of like, it's very hard to get a film sold for distribution, and it's very easy for a distributor to not pay you any money. So that's the only bummer about it. Now I feel like there are avenues where if you can make a film that's lean and mean enough, that's cheap enough, there are places that you can go to put it up for distribution yourself. But then you're responsible for all the marketing yourself as well. So unless you can figure out a way to kind of grassroots explode it into some kind of, viral video marketing system, which I don't know. I don't have my finger on the pulse of that entirely, but that might actually be a question for Tony. He's working enough in the TikToks to tell us.
Oh, we'll ask Tony. I think he's here somewhere. We have a lot, by the way, a lot of questions here, or a lot of comments. So
Yeah,
it wasn't just Tony watching. We have
It's a bunch of people just yelling "boo" from their seats.
No.
just a few, but that's it's not too bad. But okay, perfect. So let's talk. We talked a little bit about that, but let's just talk about how you when you made the movie Hunting Land. I mean, it's to be honest, I mean, the trailer looks wonderful and it looks very well shot. I'm sure you directed the film, so I want to make sure that we cover everything. And I know you were also the director of photography. And
Yeah.
oh, you weren't. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
then let's start there. How do you tell us about the film? How about that?
So a friend of mine, Edwin Stevens, is the director of photography on the film, and I had worked for him a bunch for doing lighting for him.
Okay.
On various projects that he had. Joe Raffa, who's in the film that kind of plays the antagonist, was also one of the directors that I had worked for a bunch. And our cast was two directors that I had worked for in different facets. So he's actually got a few short films and a couple of feature films on, I think they're available on Amazon as well. I know the short films are. So yeah, they've got that going. And then oddly enough, Edwin shot the next feature that I produced after Hunting Lands, which is Film Fest, which you can go watch right now if you want to pay for it. It's on Amazon, it's on iTunes. I think it's everywhere where you can get it.
We'll add some of the links on the comments after.
Yeah, and like that one is directed by Marshall, who's the lead in the movie. So Marshall Cook's the lead in Hunting Lands, but he's the director for Film Fest. And Edwin, who's the director of photography, shot that as well. Corey Pike's on the list, who basically was first AC on the film for us on Hunting Lands and helped produce it. And then he also is a producer on Film Fest. Josh Amato, this is a really easy crew to get through because it's very small. Josh Amato was fellow producer on the project and story by credit. He helped me while I was writing it. We kind of went through, he helped me build it out to development to get it like into fighting shape for making the film out of it. Brooke Mulkins, who's like one of my besties, she's great. And she was wardrobe and makeup because that's what she does professionally. But I've written a few projects with her as well. And she's fantastic. And one day we'll make an amazing director in her own way. Then geez, I think I'm like, see now I'm like, oh, it's a small crew. I mean, it's Mike O'Heaney was our sound man, who is amazing, Oscar winning Mike O'Heaney. He was I think he was audio utility or boom operator on Whiplash. So
that's an amazing movie. So.
which one for sound, but he's also a fantastic mixer. And I kind of came up through the film business with him. Love him to death. He actually got us a friend of his to cover for him for the first weeks was Phil Jackson. And then I'm trying to remember what Caleb's last name is. I don't know it. So then our art director, Caleb, was also an actor in the film as Carl, who's like the main character's best friend. And yeah, so it goes from there. Our friend Nicole came out from LA to play a scene in the film and was nice enough to like be scantily clad in a scene. Not like too bad, but definitely a fun
she was the main character, right?
Yeah, it's just all great. Yeah, so basically Joe Raffa and Marshall Cook are kind of the two leads throughout, and Marshall's by himself for a lot of screen time, so I think it makes it 28 minutes or something like that without a word of dialogue. So it's, I don't know, it's just an interesting film to try to attack, because it was one of those ones where a lot of people would have kind of thrown it aside, and I feel really grateful that everyone came on board, and especially like Edwin willing to not only be the executive producer but come out and shoot it for me, knowing that like we were going out there with no lighting team to work for him, and that it would be me out there in the woods with him, like, you know, hauling lights around and lighting each scene. And I mean, we did it quickly. It's a beautiful film, but it's one of the few points where, you know, the DP and the gaffer director, the DP executive producer, the sound man / producer, the, you know, like you get into the well, not only that, but then you think about it, like Corey Pike coming on to help us with camera just to be a first AC, and then by the time he's done, we're giving him producer credit because he's running around and grabbing stuff for us, and like, you know, making phone calls and trying to help us figure out the days after we had, you know, too much sun for a day and all our snow would melt, and we'd have to try to figure out how we were going to rebuild off from that. Fortunately, that didn't happen often. It rained a little bit the one day, but it didn't take away too much of the snowpack. But yeah, just a fantastic crew, fantastic people, and couldn't have done it without them.
So how do you get all these people to trust you, right? Like you said, I don't know how they, you know, trusted me going here. Like, how do you build that relationship? Here, I mean, I'm all about, you know, building relationships, not burning bridges, making sure you understand each and everyone's perspective when it comes to a project. So how do you go about that?
I don't know.
I'm assuming some of them are friends that will do anything for you, correct?
I mean, there are a few of them that are definitely like close friends who I still would say it's not like a system of trust. It's more of a system of like, we're going to get this done, and creatively, if we butt heads, we'll work something out. It's so then it ends up being a system of compromise more than it's just like, trust me and do what I say, because that's, it happens, but it shouldn't be the operating procedure overall.
And I'm assuming that, you know, at this point, you're like, yes, you are friends with some of them, but there's also that professionalism that has to happen because you're making something that, you know, everyone's relying on, everyone that's working on.
Yeah, I mean, you basically, when directing, you're helming the ship, but if you can't trust your crew, I mean, you literally can't be everywhere. Like, it's impossible for you to be all over the place, making sure that everything's getting done. So I don't think it's as much getting them to trust you as it's you trusting them. And then that's kind of that's the secret sauce. That's the magic, because once you trust them, it doesn't really matter if they trust you or not. Like, they're hired to be there to do, you know, to make what you want action. But for you to let go, you have to have a certain amount of trust of the other, you know, members of the crew that you're not going to be able to interact with constantly. So I have seen a few directors in my years who tried to micromanage, but it only ended up driving them and everyone they talked to crazy. So it's like, well, not necessarily crazy, but annoyed.
No,
I think
understandable.
so yeah, I think
sense.
when you're looking at it, it's all about collaboration. So like that's the thing with I mean, Luce, you've seen a bunch of the stuff that Tony and I have scrambled together,
Yes,
and it's like
yes.
that's a collaborative relationship. On occasion, I'll have to holler at him about something. Like this was the mystery box this year is the one where it's like he was shooting it, and there's very, very nice, like here's our setup, but I built a rigid enough system that we were starting from that I knew exactly what it was going to be just from the script. And he's reading a 7-page script, so when he finally saw the final cut and sees that it's like 3 minutes, and I'm like, literally everything that's in the descriptions, there's dialogue over top of it, so it condenses the script in half.
Right.
But it ends up being, I mean, it's a fun little short film, and it's like, you know,
we can't wait to see it. We can't wait to show everyone at the mystery box. We won't spoil it now because we want people to go, but we'll get into that. That's not as important as you. Question, okay? Sugar Plum Twist. Talk to us about that. That is the new Hallmark movie that is playing pretty much any night. So you tell us how you got started on that one and what you worked on.
That one's actually a local hire from here. So that was Michael Bellardi who called me up because they were looking for a key grip. He was first AC for a camera. And so he kind of was like, hey, come out and do this. It'll be a fun time. It was in Connecticut, So I took the job. I mean, it's always kind of stressful walking into, a bigger crew, because then it's a lot of people that you have to get to know and everything. And fortunately, like Michael Moose is he's a great guy because he kind of eases that tension. He goes through, he's the introduction to everybody who's already there, because they had shot for like 2 days before I became available. But as far as the show goes, I mean, it was a good show. It was plenty of equipment that I haven't really gotten to play around with since leaving Los Angeles, so I come here, and then like those Guy Singer commercials were kind of the biggest thing that I had been on here, and everything else I was, flying to Atlanta to work on. So it was nice to see the New York crews and there's not as much of a difference in work as I thought there would be. I thought that there would be kind of a noticeable difference in behavior.
Right, and that was going to be my next question, just your transition between, because you're originally from New York, and then you moved to LA to do work, and then now you're back in Scranton, this area, doing stuff in New York, Connecticut. What's the main difference? Like, how do you like it? Like, what pointers can you give someone that's doing that, or maybe is looking into going, to the bigger cities and work?
I mean, I think they're all very specific markets of what they make. And like, I definitely feel like independent film has kind of died in Los Angeles. It's just not, it's way above the affordability level there. Like, shooting a film there is very expensive. And that's why, my first film, it's like everyone came from Los Angeles, but went to Northern Michigan. Obviously, like, we could have gone to Tahoe or, somewhere with snow right there near us, but the expense is far too much. So New York definitely has like their base for New York City ends up being this thing that kind of, it definitely permeates out into the community surrounding New York. Not everything that's shot there needs to look like it's in Manhattan. So it's like, it's going to end up in different parts of the state where it's Los Angeles is locked. It's desert and forest around it. And there's not, you have to go a distance to get to the next place. So the majority of work in LA happens in LA.
Right.
So I feel like that, I guess that depends on what you enjoy. If you were to choose one right now, I don't know, I'd still pick Miami. Miami's my favorite city in America.
All right. That's of course. It's always hot there. It's always nice.
It's always nice. I enjoy the cruise. in like the Florida crews are great. Like it's good film crew bait. I still have a bunch of friends from Florida from back when, like when I graduated, I stayed in Florida for a while, and I think for about a year and a half, and worked on a bunch of feature films there. And like those crews are fantastic, but the crews are fantastic everywhere. I feel like I don't think that it's necessarily. I haven't like there's a yeah the crews are fantastic everywhere. There's definitely some terrible people mixed throughout the entirety of these great United States.
Right? No,
that,
you're
that,
right.
that you can run into in some facet everywhere. So I wouldn't say that I saw more of a concentration of it anywhere I've worked so far. I think that it's like,
Well, that's good news for Scranton. That's very good news. Now, okay, so Desiree, I have the Independent Creative Hub page, which there's a few questions and comments. I don't know if you want to look at yours, and then we'll do a little bit of that because we're getting to the end of the program, and we want to talk about something, and then one more question.
So while we're checking our social media channels for questions, I didn't see anything on the NEPA Film Society, but I'll check Mystery Box too. But this is a question the three of us can answer. Since it is like 5 days before Christmas, so happy holidays to everybody out there. However you celebrate, we wish you the best into the new year. What's your favorite holiday movie of all time, and why?
who's going first?
I mean, I can go first. It's fine.
You go first, Desiree.
You break the ice. You do it.
My knee-jerk response of my favorite Christmas movie of all time, there's multiples, but the first one that comes to mind is The Polar Express with Tom Hanks, the animated. That's a really beautiful, true classic Christmas story from the book. I watch it every year for Christmas. I do love the Prep and Landings. If you want to get to something like really new, that's on Disney Plus. I love Prep and Landing. And it wouldn't be Christmas without the classic claymation Rudolph. Santa Claus is Coming to Town. That's a real staple. And I love Charlie Brown Christmas. But I mean,
you said one. Now you took all my movies.
I took over, but I mean, with the claymations, I like the claymation Christmas, but there is one that doesn't show up around Christmas, but shows up between Christmas and New Year's. It's Rudolph's Shiny New Year. That's my favorite claymation movie, Rudolph's Shiny New Year.
I don't even know what that is. I'm gonna find it.
You have to look it up. It's Rudolph's Shiny New Year.
I'm gonna look it up as well.
Yeah, that won't show up in probably. I mean, I don't know if they still air it on TV, but that doesn't really probably show up until like when you get closer to New Year's.
In what channel?
It's probably on the usual like CBS or something. But I actually got it on. I downloaded it on iTunes. It's Rudolph's Shiny New Year. It's probably on YouTube.
It's gonna be my go-to movie. I'm gonna go watch it. So I'll say mine, and then we'll leave Zack at the end. I should really say It's a Wonderful Life for Tony that's watching, but I'm gonna say Love Actually. That movie is pretty good. I really love it, and it's one of my go-to films when I just want to watch something. Is during the holidays. Of course, there's others, but I won't be like Desiree and name every movie. So go, Zack.
It's hard for me to pick one. It's just like it depends.
Listen, Desiree, you said one. Just kidding. Go ahead, Zack.
Mine's kind of a toss-up, but I think they're both going to be relatively odd. So Die Hard, definitely.
Of course.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? I don't think it is.
It is. Yeah, it is a Christmas movie. It happens during Christmas. There's a Christmas tree. There's a Christmas tree. It's got holiday cheer. He says Merry Christmas at the end. It's wonderful. So that would be my number one.
I'm just busting.
Actually, I don't know. I feel like there's a hard competition in my heart for best Christmas movie of all time, and that's Die Hard is up there. It's right there, and then Gremlins is right next to it. So, and like those are. That would be my two favorites.
Very, very cool. Okay.
Because you're going to see the other ones no matter what. I feel like that's what it is. You're going to see the other ones no matter what. So I don't have to pick one of them as a favorite because I don't have to force anyone to put them on. But these are two that you have to force people to put on because you're like, Christmas time and these are Christmas movies.
You're definitely right. And I think they did the Die Hard question was answered a few years ago, right? Whether it's a Christmas movie or not.
I think people have asked that for years, like if it is or not.
It's like But okay, so we do have some questions, and let me see, just pull this up. I'm just gonna go through the comments, and then if there's a question, you can answer. Let's see. Let's see. Josh is watching, of course. He says he's watching you. Michael Patty. Douglas Brownell.
That's my dad.
Oh, okay. Hi, Dad. All right, let's see.
Hey.
He has a question that says, "Did you draw from life experience for inspiration for your film?"
Yes, he's asking a question he already knows the answer to.
But we don't.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the North. I was around, kind of like, I feel like, I had one grandfather was a mountain man, and the other grandfather that was kind of burly and a businessman, and I think I stole most of it from them. I mean, most of the dialogue is straight out of one or the other's mouth. I feel like that ends up being the thing. I think grandparents have like an interesting effect on you, and then eventually I have to make a film that like steals directly from my parents, but I don't know. They like, yeah. So let's go with Granddad's. It's a Granddad's movie. That's the inspiration throughout, and just the general setting of like where I grew up and what the things were that you were doing. Like definitely walking around in the woods for a hunting season with, I've killed more deer with a car though than I have with a rifle. So I've got 9 under my belt with a car.
Is that why your rifles are on the wall?
That's one from the movie.
Oh, very
Top one. And then that is my grandfather's shotgun. So, and it's just like a, break barrel Davenport. It's not anything fancy, but it gets a nice spot over there. So
exactly. All right, and I think there was one more question. Hold on, this thing.
I think Tony has a question too.
Yeah, Antonio says that CBS has it next week.
Yes, I told CBS.
I'm thinking he was talking about all the films that Desiree was saying, so now I'm gonna watch him. Tony says, "What's your favorite project? What's your favorite project that you worked on? Like, what's your favorite project? I guess if there's one favorite project."
I don't know. Tell him that I have to love them all equally. It's unfair to have favorites.
It's unfair, Tony. It's unfair.
Jeez, I don't know. Tony was actually over here, and I was complaining about how much I hate working on music videos.
Oh yeah.
And like it's too much of a time crunch, and there's not a whole lot of money put into it for what's expected out of it. So it ends up being like they're really tense. But I had the fun of being able to shoot a little bit and be the gaffer on a music video by Black Star called Dear Diamond. That was like Black Star and Common, like as the rapping side of it, and like it was a really, really fun video, and I loved the project when it came out. Like it was something great to watch. I mean, obviously Hunting Lands I'm very, very proud of, but this was something where it's you show up for the day, you accomplish something that's unique, and working with like great people. But I think that they're all like that. I mean, there's definitely some projects that I'm not exactly proud of the way they turned out eventually, but I had a great time making them.
Right.
Yeah.
I won't mention any of those films directly because I don't want to like
we don't
talk bad about anyone's. Yeah. I know.
So last question kind of goes with what you were saying. Where did it go? I think it was your mom, Desiree. Well, anyway, it says something about have you ever had disagreed with a director's vision, and how do you handle that? Like I'm thinking as a camera operator, director of photography.
I mean, the only time that I think it's not, so the majority of the time it's just make it happen. So it's like, even if you look at something and you're like, that's not the way that I would do it, it doesn't matter, make it happen. Unless it's A, unsafe, or B, absolutely impossible. So like I'll have some people that will send you something where it's like, here's a scene from 2001 Space Odyssey that has like, here's the exact picture, I want this to look like this. And then you're in a hallway at a high school and you're like, this is not like the way that these two things are too far separated that like you need to think of A, how you're going to do that, but B, it's not going to be done by camera. It's going to be done with production design. It's going to be done with wardrobe. It's going, it's like the camera doesn't put anything on screen that isn't there. Green screen will. So I guess you could do it all on green screen, but that goes without saying. But it's like the camera captures. It's not the thing that makes the movie happen. That's the actors, that's the wardrobe, that's the production design, that's that's the lighting, that's and it's a group of all of them. It's not a thing where you're not gonna fake a space station with lighting alone. You're not gonna look like you're in the woods when you're over behind the Burger King unless you have a couple of trees to cover up the parking lot. Like,
Correct.
just
Teamwork. That's good.
Yeah.
Everyone matters in that sense as far as production. So that's a very good point. So that brings us to we're pretty much at the end. We always ask filmmakers this question, and it's always the same question. What advice will you give to an up and coming filmmaker? Maybe someone just starting out, or maybe someone that's thinking of getting into this industry. Just what advice will you give? Maybe something that you wish you knew before or when you first got started. It sounds easy, but it's not.
I don't really know. I mean, good advice for a starting filmmaker would be try to get on the big show at least once or twice, like try to go, even if it's straight up like volunteer your time to go out for a day on something much bigger than what would be available to you to start, because that way you can see how the machine works in its largest form, and that kind of shows you like a well-oiled version of a TV show or a bigger commercial or a like 2 million plus feature film. Like, it's a different animal entirely, and it'll teach you a lot of like the things you do need and the things that you don't need. As you're coming up through, you're gonna realize that like, oh, I need to get a friend who wants to do production design, and I need them to have the wonderfulness of being on every production that I do for free, because we can't afford anything else, but at least they'll be a part of this thing. And so maybe that's it. Just find all the people that are going to help you out, and you help them out, and do that handshake deal and start making stuff.
Very good.
But yeah, seeing the big thing, seeing the way that it works, even if you go and just do it for free or get hired as a production assistant, getting to actually see it working, it'll let you know if you even want to do that, because it's definitely it's different, but there's multiple versions of filmmaking that all kind of have their equal facets of something beautiful about them. And there's definitely like a bazillion ways to make things. And as long as you like it, that's all that really matters in the end,
Very, very good advice. So with that, Desiree will close the program out, and then I'm going to show at the end your work again, and then we'll leave the end graphic with your website, so people can learn more about what you do. Okay. Thank you so much, Zach, for being here. You made our week, our holiday week. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
That's great. Yeah, thank you so much, Zach.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, all that madness.
Yes. Happy holidays to everybody. But yeah, thanks everyone so much for joining us tonight for Scranton Talks with Zack Wilcox with the Hunting Lands. We have wonderful events coming up into the new year since we're closing out 2021. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date with what we're doing, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to see any of our previous talks. They'll live right there if you happen to miss our lives. And we do have a podcast that we put these interviews on too, that you can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. The Independent Film Creative Hub is for you, geared to help filmmakers reach their potential in becoming successful creative artists. Be sure to visit our website, www.ourcreativehub.com, and join our directory. It's completely free to sign up. And I want to take the time to thank everyone for being with us, for starting out back in May with these talks. We're so glad you can be here and follow us, and to all our guests who have been on so far. I want to wish you guys, and Luz wants to wish you all a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we can't wait to see what 2022 brings.
We definitely cannot wait. I think it's going to be a great, great year. And again, we put out this on our own time. We got people that are willing to come here and share their knowledge. So definitely go out there on the website and learn. Really, this is for you, and we're learning as we go, and everybody has a different journey in life as far as being creative. So make sure you don't forget about that sometimes the holidays can be a little gloomy, and you can get a little blue, and your creative world seems everywhere. So make sure that you stay positive and you connect with filmmakers, because we are the ones that are always working together. We as artists know what we go through. So definitely keep that up, and Happy New Year to everyone that has been here and the ones that are going to come next year. And with that, we'll leave you with Zach's work. All right. Thank you, Zach. Thank you.
Just one drop. Oh! Gorilla Superglue Micro Precise. Of course.
Precise application, controlled dispensing with Gorilla Strength for the toughest jobs on planet Earth.
We know there are a lot of bags out there, so what's special about this one? Well, it can do that, which is super convenient when riding a bike, or a skateboard, or even roller skating. Wow. It can be your carry-on bag, or your beach bag, or your photography bag, or your bag for that, whatever you're into. Fighting ninjas? Sure, if you can fight ninjas. Literally anything you can do with a backpack or a messenger bag, you can do with this bag because it's the Bag Pack. Only from Hillside. Carry how you want.
Want a relaxing pedicure?
Relaxing pedicure? My feet get so dry and cracked, I need serious relief. That's why I use O'Keeffe's for healthy feet. Guaranteed relief for extremely dry, cracked feet. Thanks to O'Keeffe's, I got my feet back.
Everything in the woods has a choice to make. And most of the time, it's the path of least resistance. The scents they smell, the prints they see, they can block that path. Everything has an impact. Everyone makes their own choices. I made mine as much as you made yours. And they all sit in judgment of the way they decide to live, but it doesn't matter what the verdict is. They're always going to have to live with the consequences.